Welcome to PeopleSoft Now. I'm Dan Iverson. PeopleTools 8.63 is here, and this episode is all about what's new, what we've delivered, and how you can put it to work. Today, I'm joined by Russell Broom, Vice President of Application Engineering, Mike Krychek, Vice President of Platform Software Engineering, and Sashank Vemana, Director of PeopleTools Strategy. We're taking a closer look at PeopleTools 8.63, including new AI capabilities, updates to search, security, the user experience, and developer tools. We'll also cover enhancements for administrators, integrations, notifications, and container-based deployments. There's a lot to talk about, so let's get started. Welcome, Mike. So AI is a major area of interest for our customers. How is PeopleTools 8.63 bringing AI capabilities into PeopleSoft in a practical way?
Well, I would say that for PeopleTools 8.63, we're taking a practical platform-first approach by delivering foundational capabilities that make it easy for our customers to build AI-powered solutions within their PeopleSoft applications. So rather than introducing an isolated solution, we're providing reusable components that customers can combine with their AI models and services of their choice.
So are these components then that we're delivering within the PeopleTools platform to enable customers to pick and choose how they want to enable AI?
Yeah, so we initially delivered a reference architecture paper for all of this, and then beginning with PeopleTools 8.63, we actually built out the three primary components that we referenced originally. So the first one being a chat user interface, similar to what we did with ODA. It's embedded within the PeopleSoft application. It's a ready-to-use conversational interface. It enables users to interact with PeopleSoft using natural language, and it makes it a lot easier to build AI assistants and guided experiences directly into PeopleSoft applications. The second piece is the natural language search service. Okay, this is a service that we built that allows users to search for PeopleSoft information using everyday language instead of structured queries. So it enables an entirely more intuitive way of discovering data and transactions within PeopleSoft. And the third component that we delivered is what we call the Model Context Protocol Server, or the MCP server. And that's a standardized way of securely exposing PeopleSoft business data and functionality to AI assistants and agentic applications. Again, it provides a standard way for AI systems to retrieve context from PeopleSoft and perform meaningful business transactions. So all of those together are really the building blocks that we developed for customers to use in developing AI-powered use cases. And the focus is to empower the customer really to use these platform components needed to innovate quickly and securely on their own terms rather than us providing them a single AI solution.
Russell, another feature that connects to productivity and AI-assisted workflows in 8.63 is the new magic button. Can you explain what the magic button is and why customers are going to find it useful?
I sure can. Thanks, Dan. So the magic button, it's a concept that came from customers, probably from a customer advisory board we had many years ago, where we were asking customers that had started with AI, hey, what are you having to do that we need to know about and maybe action so that it's less customization or less work for you if you're interested in adopting AI. One of the things that was mentioned is, hey, I've got performance management where I want to summarize feedback, and I have this text field where they actually enter comments about the performance of an individual, I want to summarize those or rewrite those. It was a classic use case for rewriting text using AI. The problem today, before PeopleTools 8.63, is that we don't have the ability to have a related action for a text field. So customers, if they wanted to put a button beside a text field and hook in their own LLM to actually rewrite or suggest text, they had to customize the PeopleSoft transaction. So the magic button is really what brings all the magic together. It allows them to configure a magic button that appears, and then they can use an application package, which is really logic, to actually pass the text over to an LLM, have it return back their improved or rewritten text, and then plug it into the application. So the magic button basically brings all this together from a UI perspective so the customer does not have to customize the page. So that's one use case. There's plenty of other use cases as well. We've never been able to have related actions around a long field in PeopleSoft.
Oh, that's fantastic. That'll be exciting for customers. Hi, Sashank. PeopleTools 8.63 brings a number of AI features that we've already talked about, but we're bringing something into App Designer itself. Can you talk about what App Designer AI Assist is?
Yeah, so App Designer AI Assist is effectively bringing AI coding assistance and embedding that within the PeopleSoft developer workspace. That's App Designer. And instead of a developer having to take people code and associated context around it and copy it and paste it into an external application that's AI based and have those conversations there, now with this feature they can have this AI based assistance right within App Designer. So that's what the feature is about.
Nice. So, how does the AI Assist tool fit with the way developers are currently working with App Designer?
Yeah, it fits in naturally because PeopleSoft developers are used to working with projects in the application developer designer workspace. And a project is effectively a collection of objects that have a certain meaning. It could be to do with their development or enhancements or troubleshooting. And so we take that context and pass that into this embedded AI coding assistance. And so from there, they could start to have conversations specific to the task that they're working on. They could say, they could ask it to summarize code. They can ask it to help with troubleshooting and extending the code in terms of making suggestive improvements, writing entire pieces of code as well as documenting. So we've seen all sorts of use cases in this space. So it's effectively making our developers much more productive and also reducing the overall learning curve for new developers coming into PeopleSoft as well.
Oh, that's excellent. So, for customers that want to start using this, what are the different models that they can use with AI Assist?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we don't lock in customers to a specific AI coding assistant technology or LLM model behind the scenes. So the way we've done this is effectively there's an integration. We have a plugin, so we have a base plugin code which is based on Python, so customers can use that and extend to integrate with any coding assistants of their choice. And we also offer two samples, one with Klein and another with Aider, so they could take that and use that to integrate with those coding assistants. And in terms of the models itself, that's dependent on the subscription levels that you have within the coding assistant technology that you might be using. So again, that's configurable. So once you have whatever LLMs you have subscribed to, you could then configure them within App Designer. So all this is configurable. Effectively, customer brings their own technology.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. So you talked about the customers bringing their technology to it, and we talked a little bit about PeopleTools is shipping an MCP server as well, which is powering this behind the scenes. But what are the possible opportunities that customers would have of using this MCP tool outside of App Designer?
Yeah, that's a great extension to the AI assistant for app designer story. And the way we built this feature is we built a lot of APIs for PeopleTools metadata as part of the AI assistants for app designer. And what we're also doing is offering those as MCP tools that can be exposed to external integration. So what that means is you could have a developer who's using an IDE, external IDE, not app designer, which is also potentially AI powered, and that could be configured to connect to our MCP server, which will list all the MCP tools. And so you're bringing in people tools object context inside external IDE where a developer is working on. So it's a very interesting use case, and one which we are scratching the surface on right now, but we'll continue to improve this in the future as well.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting.
Yeah.
Russell, PeopleTools always includes usability improvements, and 8.63 is obviously no exception. Before we get into the actual usability changes, let's first talk about the visual experience. What's changing with PeopleTools 8.63?
That's a great question. You're right. Every tools release, we try to make it look a little bit different. We can do that in a variety of ways. The biggest one we always do is really when the user first logs into the application, what we now call the landing page, that's the biggest change. Mostly it is a change to the overall color and theme. In 8.62, we moved to more of a teal color. And in 8.63, we're moving more towards a ocean color or blue color, which is great. Along with that, there's other changes to point out. Activity guides got a complete refresh in the look and feel. All the buttons are now consolidated on the right part of the page instead of having disparate buttons on the left and on the right. We've also improved the overall look of the steps, making the steps look more modern with more information. So those are just some of the highlights of what we've done. But mostly it's color, as well as the overall user experience of activity guides, which are really important to a lot of different applications.
Yes, the blue theme, the ocean theme looks fantastic. It's kind of a callback to the older PeopleSoft days, but in a very modern way, and it looks very, very great. All right, so let's talk about some usability improvements now. So the quick access bar has been around for a little bit, but we've made some improvements to it. Can you give us a quick overview of that?
Sure. So the quick access bar, for those you don't know, is that it's really the icons that are in the banner at the top of the homepage or landing page. And what we got from many customers is, hey, I don't want to show this icon or that icon. And what they end up having to do today is actually do coding to remove things that are not applicable. When we got into PeopleTools 8.62 and started delivering sections for recently visited and favorites, those are also in the quick access bar. So some customers may want to remove them from the banner and instead just show them on the landing page directly. So now with PeopleTools 8.63, those are all configurable. You can pick and choose favorites, recently visited, and the accessibility help icons, and whether those appear in the quick access bar. So more configuration, less customization.
That's excellent. So you talked about landing pages. Landing pages were a big change in PeopleTools 8.62. Customers have been really excited about it. We've made some improvements in 8.63. Can you give us the overview of those changes?
Sure, be happy to. One of the main changes we did from 8.62 to 8.63 is really giving customers more options. We already talked about the quick access bar just a second ago, but also we're giving customers more ways to generate content in sections. One of those that'll be very valuable to a lot of customers are those that use navigation collections. What we found in talking to customers is that they built their own navigation collections, which basically bring together a lot of disparate links that make it easier for the user to go to one place and navigate to a lot of different transactions, either in PeopleSoft or outside of PeopleSoft. So now there's the ability to actually generate tiles in a section based off of navigation collection as the input. That's one way. The other thing we've done is improved security around sections. So today, if you have a component-based tile, and you want to make it specific to a specific section, that's not possible. So if the user has access to a tile, it will show up in every section. So adding on top of what we delivered in PeopleTools 8.62, now you'll have the ability with security to say, hey, well, I don't want this section visible unless you have role ABC. And so even though they have access to the tile, if they don't have access to the section, it will not show up. So that's another improvement. The other great thing is that we've improved the way that we handle what we call clustering of dashboards. What that means is that if a customer has financials and HCM, today with the landing page, we automatically merge that information, all the tiles together. But on a dashboard, we do not in PeopleTools 8.62. With 8.63, it takes those same capabilities provided with a landing page and brings that to a dashboard. So it means that you can build a dashboard that consolidates things across all the different application pillars, whether it's campus solutions, financials, and HCM.
So, Sashank, search continues to be a big investment area for PeopleTools. So, how would you describe the overall direction we're taking with search in PeopleTools 8.63?
Yeah, so as you said, search has been from several releases now a core area of investment for us. Search technology as well is a core component within the PeopleSoft technology stack, and we continue to invest in the search framework, improve the search as well as insights capabilities. And specifically to do with search, I would say that we're trying to make the whole search experience a much more intuitive and natural and more forgiving way of search. So that's what we're trying to go after for search specifically.
Sure, that sounds great. So, semantic search is one of the headline search improvement features. Can you explain what that is and how users are going to find that useful for them?
Yeah, semantic search is a feature where instead of having to rely on hard-coded kind of keyword-based searches, which is powerful as keyword searches can search across a document, so you don't have to be more structured like how the traditional search works. But it is still a direct keyword match. For example, if I'm searching for a direct deposit page, I would still need to type in the exact direct deposit term for me to find that in my results. So what semantic search brings to the table is that I could search for something like update my bank information and direct deposit will show up as a result. Because behind the scenes, we're using OpenSearch's semantic search feature, which uses vector embeddings and vector scoring methods to find closest matching results as well as the keyword matches. So it's a hybrid approach, but the results will be much more intuitive and your searching will be much more natural as well.
Is there any place in PeopleTools we're going to be enabling that by default?
Yes, we will be enabling the semantic search by default for the navigation search, and also this could be configured by customers to set up for any application search. It could be their custom search definitions or anything that we offer, like the job search, etc. So, great question.
Excellent, excellent. So another feature that is very similar in the PeopleTools 8.63 is typo tolerance. As someone who often types faster than I'm thinking, this is a great feature for me. Can you explain a little bit of what we're doing with that?
Yeah, so that's the part where I mean that we're making search more forgiving, which is exactly what you said. We type fast and we tend to have typos. And again, this is a native feature as part of OpenSearch that we've adopted to make search better. And effectively, when you have typos, you end up with dead-end searches in the past because you don't have any matches with that keyword. But now with typo tolerance, you will find the closest matching keywords. Again, it's the open search technology that powers this, and so you don't end up with just because you have a typo, you don't end up with nothing. You will have a much more forgiving search, and you'll have much more superior results if you combine both semantic search and typo tolerance. And typo tolerance is one that's available by default across the board. It's of course configurable, but this is something that it's not very specific to a specific search definition. It can be controlled at a system level.
So, Mike, another improvement we've made around search is the ability to search within facets with the configurable search framework. What problems are we trying to solve by adding this capability?
I would say the biggest improvements we've made to search within facets for 863 is we've made a couple usability improvements that I think makes that feature a lot better. So the first thing we're going to do is that we're going to show you the first 10 filter values. And there'll be like a more link after that. And so that is primarily because some of these filter value lists get very large. Okay, so we figured by at least giving you something to present, giving you the first 10 values, at least you can then hit more to move on. The second thing, though, is that you can search within the facet feature itself. And so start typing and then hit enter, and then the matching filter values will basically show up for you. So again, for a very large list, just start typing and hit enter. You can also use wildcards as well in that. And also the search within facets feature is also available with tree facets as well. So as you begin typing, you can hit enter and it will show you just the nodes in the tree that match.
Beyond the user-facing improvements to search, what are some of the back-end areas where we've improved the search framework?
Okay, so with PeopleTools 8.63, first we upgraded OpenSearch to 3.2, and that brought obviously some additional or newer platform capabilities, semantic search, richer insights, enhanced search experiences. All of that comes with the upgrade. In addition to that, though, I would think maybe the two most important features that we built for PeopleTools 8.63 are in the area of high availability for indexing and flexible data partition indexing. Okay, so with respect to the high availability for indexing, in the past we would go out, we would search for the preferred search node, and if it was unavailable, something like real-time indexing would fail, and then the unprocessed RTI data would accumulate in staging tables, and it would just become a big hassle for customers, basically. So beginning with PeopleTools 8.63, we're going to check the configured nodes in the search instance, and we're going to go find the first active node, okay? So rather than failing when the preferred node is not active, we're going to find the first active node, and I think that will really help improving the indexing continuity. It'll reduce the amount of manual intervention, and then obviously will help the unprocessed RTI data from accumulating in staging tables. The second feature that I think is probably most important is the flexible data partition indexing that we introduced. So this will allow our application teams or the customer to select different fields from the search definition instead of limiting this to the last update date time field, which is what was in place before. There's a couple really good benefits because of that. Not only are your partitions themselves reflective of that, but it also allows us to shore up some of the gaps that we had in like real-time indexing, like effective data processing and things like that. So this is another very important feature that was introduced in PeopleTools 8.63.
So we've talked about some of the back-end changes, but search is really behind the scenes powering insights in PeopleTools. So what are some of the changes in 8.63 we've done to help insights work better?
Okay, so the improvements that we made primarily to embedded insights and interactive insights is really giving the application teams greater control over which dashboard is displayed and how it responds to page context. So the applications or the customer can now override the default dashboard that's presented during page load, and then they can dynamically apply context filters through an API, ensuring that the dashboard itself at page load reflects the context of the page as well. So in the 6.2 timeframe, when we first began to embed dashboards into PeopleSoft pages, we would bring the context from the dashboard into the page. And so now we can take the page context and apply that to the dashboard as it loads. So it's really the complete solution that we've really had envisioned for a couple of releases now.
Sashank, security is another major area that we focused on in PeopleTools 8.63. Can you give us some of the major enhancements that you want customers to know about?
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk about two security features, enhancements that we've done in 8.63. Number one is SAML 2.0 support. So this allows customers to integrate with any identity provider solution, provided they support SAML with PeopleSoft for single sign-on authentication, so making a seamless authentication process. And number two is two-factor authentication support natively using time-based one-time password authenticator applications. So together, these two features help our customers strengthen the way in which the end users access PeopleSoft. So that's really
Mhm.
what we're going after with these two features.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into the SAML 2.0 support a little bit more. What are we delivering in PeopleTools 8.63 to make that integration work?
Yeah, so SAML 2.0 is by far one of the popular standards that's out there in the community, and customers are already integrating their enterprise applications with identity provider solutions of their choice for single sign-on using SAML. So what we're doing is we're making it much more easier for customers to configure SAML-based integrations with identity providers for PeopleSoft. So in the past, they've struggled with having to build their own custom solutions or offload that to a load balancer or other third-party bolt-ons, etc. And now it's going to be a configurable framework. As long as the identity provider supports SAML, they could configure PeopleSoft to work with an identity provider to provide that single sign-on authentication experience, making it much more secure and also more easy to maintain as well in the future.
Yeah. So, what are the different sign on flows that we support with our SAML framework?
Yeah, PeopleSoft is a complex application, so there's several ways in which users can access the application. So we're going to support both the identity provider initiated flow as well as the service provider initiated flow. So when we say identity provider initiated flow, what we mean by that is you log into a central location like the identity provider's solution, or it could be a custom portal, a centralized portal of sorts. And from there, you launch into PeopleSoft. So that's one way to access PeopleSoft. And the other is through deep links, where you would directly get to a PeopleSoft transaction, either through a notification, URL, etc. And we will handle the redirects if authentication is required. Go back to the IDP. Once authentication is successful, we'll bring you back into the specific transaction as well. So we support both the flows. So it'll be working in either way.
Oh, that's excellent. Okay, so let's change gears and talk a little bit more about the time based one time passwords support that we're offering. What are we delivering to customers, and how are the different use cases where they can use this within PeopleSoft?
Yeah, so what we're doing is it's effectively a second factor after the primary authentication happens. It could be single sign on or any other setup that you might have. So once you're authenticated, the second factor comes into play where you can challenge the user to authenticate using this factor. Now, users can register their authenticator applications on their mobile devices or tablets or other devices, and once they're registered, as long as the mobile authenticator supports time-based one-time password standard, then it will start generating the verification codes, which is time-based, of course. And our applications can then prompt for this verification at various points in the application, and the users can use this mobile authenticator apps to enter the verification code. So that's the way it works, and we are offering this as a out-of-the-box integration. And the way in the use cases would be two ways. One is you can by default set it up as as part of the login activity. You can enable the second factor. So once you complete the first factor authentication, you would do the second factor and you would enter the verification code. But the more interesting one is for specific business transactions that might require a second factor verification. For example, let's say someone's changing their direct deposit information or someone's accessing their social security number. You could, using the PeopleSoft API that we provide, you could invoke the second factor authentication at various points, business events, depending on the customer needs. All right, Dan. So I'm going to ask you to switch hats now, and I'm going to ask you some questions as well because you're no stranger to People Tools, and you've been working as hard as anyone on the release. So tell us about one of the important platforms improvements that we've done, and the feature that's called the Middleware DPK Builder. What problem is it solving for our administrators?
Yeah, so I'm excited about this one. The middleware DPK is replacing what we used to call the infrastructure DPK. What the infrastructure DPK was and what the middleware DPK uh, is us packaging CPU fixes that come out, well, it used to be a recorder, and sometimes are now coming out monthly on the regular cadence. And the challenge with our previous model was that we would get the patches at GA time. We'd install them, validate them, create a DPK package, release it to customers, but that has a delay involved in it. And our customers oftentimes need to apply CPU patches within a couple of days or even the day they get released. So what we're doing is we're changing our model on how we are delivering this. The middleware DPK is going to include a new builder tool. That's the same tool that we're going to use internally, but customers now have access to it. The middleware DPK builder will let you connect to My Oracle support, check for new patches, say new WebLogic or Tuxedo patches. It'll download them, package them up in a zip file that the DPK understands, and then you can use the DPK to deploy your CPU patches. So we're solving a couple of things. We're adding more automation around checking for new patches, downloading them on a schedule that works for you. It also plugs into the DPK so that you have all these other tools that we've built to patch your systems on a much faster basis than you used to before.
So it effectively offers more control of when and how they can pick up their patches as well. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. So the tool is set up in a way where it will always check to pull down the latest patches. So on CPU Tuesday, if you want to go run the tool, the builder, it'll check MOS. If there's a new patch available, it'll pull it down. You can have it zip it up into a DPK package and then deploy it to your servers as quickly as you want. So it gives you the flexibility to apply these patches on your schedule versus waiting for us to go through and validate everything and then release it. You can do a lot of that work yourself if your organization needs you to do it much faster.
All right, Dan. So let's switch gears. Let's talk about lifecycle management. This is also a big area of investments for us. We've been continuing to make a lot of progress there. So there is a new feature called customization groups. What is that? Can you tell us all about it?
Yeah, so customization groups are an extension of an 8.62 feature called customization insights. So with 8.62, we have new dashboards that can show you how your customizations are impacted by the maintenance that we ship in our PeopleSoft images. It gives you valuable information about how often your customizations were impacted, which gives you a rough ability to see which ones are expensive in terms of like retrofitting every time you apply maintenance. The way we viewed or structured the 8.62 feature was all around the PUM metadata and how we ship the delivered objects. And in 8.63, we've extended that to now where you can group these customizations in a way that's meaningful for your organization. So, for example, in 8.62, the feature might have objects listed as human resources, which is the product area that it came from. But those customizations might cross different areas for your organization. Some of them might have been integration customizations you had to do. They might have been local regulatory changes or business process changes. So now in 8.63, you can go through and say, here are the functional customizations that I have and organize them in groups and then take the insights we delivered in 8.62 and now cross-reference them against your customization groups. So now you can see future maintenance, upcoming maintenance, historical maintenance based on the way that you think about customizations versus how we deliver them in the update manager.
So how does this whole customization groups fit into our larger LCM insights or customization insights story?
Yeah. So for many years now, we've offered a number of tools to help customers move away from customizations to configurations. And part of that is understanding what customizations are expensive, which customizations are key to your business, and what customizations you just need to use because it's PeopleSoft, and that's one of the advantages of it. So the information that you get out of customization insights and now customization groups in 8.63 gives you a lot more information and data about what customizations you've had to spend time retrofitting, or which customizations are used, or which ones you're spending a lot of time testing. So that gives you more information to make a decision on, should we try to move this customization to a configuration, or is it a relatively inexpensive customization? So it's easier to leave it there and then focus your time on other areas where you might want to move your customizations over to configuration.
Awesome. So another operation focused feature is called the log analyzer. So what exactly does this provide to our administrators?
Yeah, so in 8.63, the PeopleSoft Log Analyzer is something that's built off of OpenSearch and OpenSearch dashboards, but we've added some tools behind the scenes to give it a lot more value. So PeopleSoft servers generate a number of different log files, and especially in a production environment, those log files can be on many servers. And so if you run into errors or you're troubleshooting things, oftentimes you have to hop between servers, you're looking in different directories, and then you're going through an entire log file trying to find maybe the log entries that are specific to you. What we're shipping in 8.63 is the ability to essentially read those log files, enrich them, give a lot of value to them, and put them in a single location where you can go and search that location, but we can also visualize the data that's in the logs. So for example, if you have application server log files across 10 different app servers, rather than going and searching all of those, you can use the log analyzer tool to consolidate all of them in OpenSearch. Our tools will then add value to the different fields. So we know what's a date time field. We know what's a user ID field. We can look for SQL errors. All of those things that might have taken you a lot of time, you can now do in a single place. So this also helps you from an operations perspective because you can be proactive. You can visualize traffic across your systems. You can look at usage patterns. So kind of like we were doing with the customization groups, where you're trying to give more information around how your customizations are used and how they're impacted, we're kind of focusing that same energy also on the operations and energy that's happening within your PeopleSoft servers as well.
Great. So why is centralized log collection and visualization kind of valuable for customers running complex environments? I know you were in this situation before joining Oracle, so I know you'll be excited about this. So tell us why it's valuable, why it's important.
Yeah, for sure. So if you talk to a lot of customers, they can make educated guesses about how their system is being used. There are going to be periods of time where they know the system needs to be scaled up for, say, course registration or open enrollment. But there's other times of the year where it's less. But that's generally just the users kind of understanding how the business works, but there's not often the data behind it. So one of the things we can do with Log Analyzer is, by pulling in all this log information, we can see the actual traffic that's happening on your servers. We can see if there's, say, an increase in SQL errors or other errors happening across your logs. We can see if errors are isolated to a single server, or if it's happening across the entire enterprise. And so it's that bit of information, by centralizing everything, that you can get a clear picture and get real data behind how your applications are running.
That's awesome. It's like finding a needle in a haystack.
Yes, yes, it
So
is.
we are continuing to improve PeopleSoft test framework as well. So any improvements that you want to call out in this lifecycle section?
Yeah, so we've made some very tactical improvements to the PTF, and these come specifically from some of our most powerful users around PTF. So we have the ability now to compare PDF outputs. So you can specify a base PDF document and compare the output to what is generated from your PTF test run. We have the ability to be more flexible with how queries are run to generate data. And we also have given a lot more control around kind of branching and controlling within your test scripts as well. And that's mostly focused around giving better support for controlling whether things are a warning, whether things are an error, or sometimes when you're doing branch checks, like an if statement, you don't really care what the result is. You just need to control that flow. And so we've made some very as I said, tactical improvements around how that works, so that our PTF scripts are more clear in returning back what's an error or what's a warning or what's just a control.
That's awesome. So we've talked a lot about lifecycle management and operations. If you look across the board, is there any common themes that we are focusing on specifically to solve customer problems?
Yeah, I think all three of these areas that we've talked about are very much focused on really understanding how your system operates so that you know what to spend time on. Uh, Especially administrators spend a lot of time, say, keeping the lights on within the system. And while that's great, that's important, the less time we can spend focused on that and more time focused on taking advantage of some of these new features is something that will pay dividends for all of our customers. So understanding usage patterns in your systems through log analyzer is really important. Understanding which customizations are important to your business or which ones are expensive to maintain can pay dividends in the future if you can make smart decisions about what to move to configuration or maybe keep as a customization, as well as around the test framework of making it easier for our customers to build test scripts and get clean output so their testing process can happen faster. All of that is really focused on making sure we can be as efficient as possible running PeopleSoft so we can take time to work on all the cool new things that the entire applications teams and the PeopleTools teams work on. Russell, let's talk about integrations and notifications. In PeopleTools 8.63, we're introducing the webhooks framework. If you haven't heard of webhooks before, they are lightweight integrations that are focused on pushing information to a system. And unlike other integration technologies that we have, webhooks are lightweight in the sense of they send a message and they only look for basically a thumbs up or thumbs down. Was the message received? So there's no processing of a response message or anything like that. Really good for just integrating events between systems. So we're adding this to PeopleTools. But can you tell me why this is useful for PeopleSoft overall?
For PeopleSoft overall, I would say webhooks because now it is more moving us towards real-time events rather than what we call like push and pull. And the way I like to think about it is today we have lots of integrations that, let's say that you're waiting on a piece of mail and you go to the door to see whether it's been delivered yet or not. That's kind of the traditional methods. Oh, is there anything there? No, I'm going to, close the door and then go back, open it up again. With webhooks, it's, the mailman actually rings your doorbell and hands you, your mail. So that concept is how I, like to think about it. It's really less overhead because the integrations we have today are constantly just pushing data out all the time when something happens or processing that occurs, etc. Whereas now we're doing it more off of event based. And what that's going to give us, which I'm really excited about, is when we did a lot of investments around notifications, a lot of customers said, hey, I want to send a notification to Teams or a notification over Slack. And because of the integration challenges, we were not able to actually support that. So with webhooks, we'll finally be able to support being able to send a notification over a Slack channel or to Teams. So that's the thing that I'm most looking forward to with webhook support in PeopleTools 8.63.
That's fantastic.
Dan, improving containers support has been another focus in 8.63. So what is changing in this release? Tell us all about it.
For sure. So previous to 8.63, we've had container support for a couple of releases now. But one of the ways in which we supported containers was that customers had to download the DPK and build their container images from scratch. And while it's not hard, it's something that every customer does, but they essentially build the same image every time. So starting with PeopleTools 8.63, we're now shipping container images along with the DPKs as well. So for customers that want to try using containers, rather than having to build it, they can go out to My Oracle Support and download the pre-built container images for what the PeopleTools release they want to go on. And we will continue to release these container images every time we have a new PeopleTools release. This lets customers take advantage of containers by simplifying their deployment. They don't have to worry about installing WebLogic and Tuxedo every time. They can pull down the latest PeopleTools container image or OpenSearch container image, and it has the fully patched version for them. And then they spin up the container. It'll create the domains that they specify, and away they go. So it simplifies things because customers no longer need to worry so much about the install of PeopleSoft. It's more of downloading the container image, specifying your configuration, and starting the image and getting your PeopleSoft system.
Sounds great. So sounds like it offers a lot of simplicity and benefits. What are some of the use cases for containers within the PeopleSoft ecosystem in terms of other deliveries that we might have?
Yeah, so we're excited about this because we are going to take container images and extend that to the PeopleSoft update images as well. So if you want to try running your latest PeopleSoft image on containers, we will create those container images for you. That means you no longer have to download, say, the native OS DPK, which can be a lot of zip files. Instead, you can download the container images that have the PeopleSoft Update Manager already installed for you. So it's a smaller download. Everything's pre-installed, so all you have to do is set up your configuration information and start the container. And we're really excited about this. This is our preferred way of running the PeopleSoft Update Manager going forward. And we think it's going to offer a lot of simplicity for customers, a lot of benefits over all of our existing delivery models.
Fantastic. So in terms of container adoption, when customers are starting off with this, what is the main value add with us delivering the PeopleTools container images, and where should they get started?
Yeah, so there's a couple of bits of value that customers will get. First of all, it's a much simpler deployment with a container image because we've pre-installed everything. Everything is ready to go. They don't have to download and go through the entire install process. The other thing of value is we will be releasing container images every time we have a new PeopleTools patch release. So rather than download the DPK every time, you can just download a new container and deploy that instead. It's a much simpler deployment. Now, if customers want to get started using containers, one thing to remember is that it's not an all or nothing approach. You can mix and match containers with your traditional PeopleSoft deployment. So if you want to get your feet wet and see what the container image deployment looks like, you can have a traditional PeopleSoft virtual machine running and put a container image next to it and run them side by side to see how they work. And that works for both the PeopleTools mid-tier container as well as the OpenSearch containers as well. So you could run a traditional PeopleSoft mid-tier, but maybe try the OpenSearch container image in an environment until you get comfortable with it. And then you can start rolling the container images out for the rest of your applications. That's our look at PeopleTools 8.63. We hope the conversation gave you a better sense of what's new and how these enhancements can help you work more efficiently and modernize your PeopleSoft environment. To learn more, visit the PeopleSoft information portal at peoplesoftinfo.com. You can also connect with the PeopleSoft development and strategy teams this October at the PeopleSoft Reconnect Dive Deep virtual event. Visit questoraclecommunity.org for details. And now, it's time for your Keeping in the Know update. Thanks for watching.
Good, Sparky.